Hi guys and welcome back. It's episode 2 of The War Room. I'm Zelim Nel, this is Mark Keohane, and we're moving off fullback today over to the rest of the backline. Mark, we're going to be talking about the wings and centres, potential selections there in an emergency where we have injuries that knock out the preferred starters.
Okay, for those who missed the first episode, this is the criteria. The top 15 that we consider, and we'll tell you who we would have picked ordinarily, can't play. It's the third and final test. It's 1-1. Who would you bring in to start as the 15 and feel comfortable that you can beat a British and Irish Lions side that we assume has a Johnny Sexton or an Owen Farrell at 10? So we went with Willie Leroux was our starting 15. He's injured. He's not available. We discussed the fullback options. We put the 5-6 options down. We chose Frans Steyn. You also chose Frans Steyn. Nearly 30% of 5,500 votes. So wonderful reaction to that.
Yep.
Good discussion on the SA Rugby magazine Facebook page. We all have opinions. The overriding feeling of the punter was similar to ours. You got to go with his experience.
Yep.
If France is not on the bench, he's got to start, and he would start at 15 given the inexperience of the others. Fussy came in second, and then the big surprise was the kid from the Lions.
Tian Swanepoel.
He came in third.
We gave him no chance.
No chance, and he got 17% of the votes. Fussy got 22%, and Francis Steyn 30%. So he's in there. He's in there to play the Lions in this decider at the FNB Stadium in front of 90,000. Remember, we are allowing crowds in. This is fantasy rugger. So we're looking at our win options. We're going to look at 14s and 11s, and a lot of them we don't subscribe to the theory as selectors in this war room that there's an out-and-out 14 and there's an out-and-out 11, and even some of our centre options will be on the winners. So if you want to kick us off, Zal, in terms of the win options.
Well, I mean, so if we're assuming that Ches and Colby is unavailable, we are saying Makazole Mapimpi is unavailable.
Those would be our two choices.
Right, those would be our two choices to start. They are not in the frame at the moment. Who do you replace them with? The guys you've got to consider, I suppose, are Sabu and Corsi. There's the other Sharks winger, Yao Peng there. How do you pronounce that?
Peng.
I apologise.
Yeah.
We've got, at the Stormers, we've got Sergio Peterson. We've got Siabelo Sonatlo. There's a couple of centre options you could potentially play there. A guy like Jesse Creel comes into the frame.
Jesse Creel, you know, it's like he's like the forgotten man of South African rugby. He's gone to Japan. He's playing good rugby over there. There was a time when Heineken was here that Jesse Creel could pick any position he wanted. He had that one awful match against the Pumas in Durban. Played out of position. His positional play was exposed. Always had great qualities as an athlete. At times just showed amazing ability as an outside centre. Some of those games against the All Blacks where he just showed that electric pace. But very questionable on defence, be it midfield or the wing.
Yeah.
But hell, he has got experience and he's got better, and I think he has recovered from that 2015 handoff in the 83rd minute against Japan. Poor positioning when he went in for that tackle. That kind of momentary halt in the defensive alignment certainly allowed the Japanese winner, New Zealand club player, in for that famous try. But if you're looking around at the Currie Cup that we've had, Super Rugby Unlocked Zels, who of the youngsters have come through that have impressed you?
Yeah, there'd be a lot of a groundswell of support for guys like Stravino Jacobs at the Bulls and Kurtley Arends, the guys at in the Preparation Cup, the Kickoff Cup, whatever we're calling it. They came through and did some nice things there. I don't know whether we can really consider those sort of guys for Test rugby in a decider in 2021, but certainly some talent came through there and some guys that really caught the eye. So.
I know you keep on talking about Kurtley Arends.
Yes.
I know Jake also rates him highly.
Yes.
Do you see him over the next couple of years being more of an option to make an impact in a national squad equation ahead of Jacobs?
I would say yes. It's on a limited sample though. I mean, this is a kid who was playing Varsity Cup 2 years ago. And you know how it is when you're the new kid on the block. Stravino Jacobs comes on, people don't really know him, does some great things. People are like, wow, this guy's a Springbok. And I think within that frame, we have to look back. We have to take a step back a little bit and say, who are the guys that have paid their school fees, who maybe weren't electric in the Currie Cup, but are possibly more pedigreed players at this point in their careers. And so for me, If we're looking at replacements for the wingers, the way we defend right now, where you've got to have some sort of repeated sprint ability, you're shooting up from out wide to go catch that wide attacker ball and all, and then you've got to get back in the line. As much as I like big bookends, you've got to consider why Jacques has had guys like Cheslin and Makazole Mapimpi on the edge of the line there. So I think you've got to almost factor in a bit of like-for-like replacements there. Wandisile Similani is a guy you could consider to replace Cheslin. Quick burst, not slow, but maybe not the fastest guy on the field. Has got experience playing outside wide. Has been played outside centre at the Lions for a bit. Great feet, can make something out of nothing, can kick. That's an option to consider at 14.
If you're looking at, and forget just for a moment 14 and 11, we're looking at, you call it your bookends.
Yes.
Do we go like for like with a Speckman for a Colby?
Right.
Or do we say, if Billy LaRue's not there and Frans Steyn is there,
who's the best combination?
Then are we going pace? Are we going step? Or are we saying we're picking the biggest back three that defensively are effectively just going to play the percentages and don't expect anything to come in terms of an attacking game from them? Where would your headspace be?
Yeah.
When it comes to the type of winner that we're going to look at?
Yeah, so again, Mark, I think you've got to go. Rassie and Jacques have got those guys in those places for a reason. And so I think you've got to, even though we have France at the back who maybe changes a bit what we do on attack, I feel like you've got to consider the defensive implications of having a bigger, potentially slower guy at the edge defending. So I think Cheslin's ability to get up really fast and be an intercept threat, I think we can imitate that with a guy like Wandisile. A guy that I think should totally be on the frame is Sergio Peterson. I mean, in your mind, you probably think he's like 47 years old because he made his debut
as an 18-year-old. As a Kings, he just come out of grey high.
Correct. The guy's 26 years old. He's clutch. He's in the kicking game. He's fantastic. He's almost like Brayton Paulson in the sense the ball seems to bounce to him. It's on a string, and I feel like he's a guy who's been overlooked. And who could definitely fill into that Cheslin Colby role. So I would look at somebody like that on the right wing.
Okay, so let's go left wing first because that's our banker.
Okay.
We're going to go in Nkosi.
I would go Sabu Nkosi.
He's been in the World Cup squad. Yep. Whenever he's got a start, he's played well. His curse at the moment is
staying healthy.
But the two that have come in have just been sensational in the last 18 months. When the Boks were playing, 2018 into 2019.
Yep.
And obviously we've got Dejanti that's still appealing his suspension, and it's been out of the game for about 4 years, and he could potentially be coming back as well into the frame in the next year or so.
Yep.
Wonderfully talented player.
Yep.
His suspension opened the way for a Cheslin Colby to get into the mix, and he took that with kind of both hands and both feet, as Owen Farrell will attest to.
Yeah.
So we are going to go the experience of Frans Steyn, the school fees as the term you use, of Nkosi. No problem. We feel he's been there before. He can handle it, and he did play in that series against England at home. Scored some wonderful tries as well. So we put him on the left wing.
Absolutely, I'd give that a go.
All right.
Yeah.
Then we've got to decide on the right wing. We're going to go. Is it a Jesse Kriel in terms of experience on the right wing, or do we say he's primarily going to be considered in the centres? Is it Cornell Hendricks, who's been a revelation at 12 for the Bulls, but was a fabulous winner when he made his debut? Hasn't lost that much pace. People say, well, he's got a bit older, and I think he's one of the great stories of world rugby, not just South African rugby, given how he's come back from the heart problems. They said he would never play again. He's given so much to the community where he comes from in the Western Cape. Took the chance to go play under Jake, took the positional switch, and has really been, for me, one of the players of the year in South Africa.
Absolutely.
Do we revert to a player like that and say, even if you have lost half a yard, you're going to be a better winner for having played it inside centre in terms of your understanding, especially of defence? Or do we say, Sergio Peterson, this kid still got gas. Speckman, a like-for-like replacement for Colby. Not necessarily as good for some people, but my God, he scored some amazing tries.
On the counter-attack, how do you stop it?
And when that guy starts stepping, between him and Colby.
When he starts dancing, mate.
Yeah, when he starts dancing, the opposition's in trouble, as Paul Kearns would say. So it comes down to you, what type of player are you picking for this deciding test? And we keep on reminding people, if we were playing Italy, we'd pick a very different side. If we were playing New Zealand potentially in a rugby championship match, and there is it tomorrow, for purposes of this series,
Yeah.
we want to test the depth of the Springboks going into the biggest series in 12 years,
Yeah.
the British and Irish Lions. If we lose the 15 first-choice players in each position, who would we bring in that decisive third test to potentially beat the Lions?
Yeah.
So that is the criteria. Who do you go with on your right wing?
So maybe I'm taking this too seriously, but since Cornell's played on the wing for South Africa, we switched from the traditional shift defense to this rush that Jacques has got. The ball's in there, everyone shoots up as fast as they can. So how much experience does Cornell have playing wing like that defensively? That would be a concern for me. I love the guy. I'd love to see him on the field. I think where he's maybe not a physical centre, he could potentially be quite a physical winger. And whether we pick him at 13 or on the wing, I'd love to see him there. I'm just gonna scale back on thinking too much about this and say Cornell is in form. He's a useful player. He's experienced. Let's take him. Let's put him on the wing.
Do you put him on? Do you put him on? And are you completely disregarding that? Because the more you talk, the more I think he's got to go to 12. He's got to go to 12, and I'm liking more and more the Sergio Peterson kind of option.
Yeah, he's a like-for-like replacement.
And pace, and he can play off of France Stain in the tackle. So I know we bantered a bit before the show started. We kind of had an idea of who would be, but the minute you get in the war room, things become a bit different. So think about players a bit differently. You know, it's like when I was with the Springboks many years ago, there's some players who don't quite know how close they were to Springbok selection. They were down and then they were out by the time that meeting ended. So I came in here thinking, Cornell Hendricks, I want him back in the mix.
Yeah.
At 14. But I'm gonna if you're gonna fight for Sergio Peterson as a bolter, I'm gonna go with you.
But listen, we chose France at 15, and he's probably the best guy to replace Damien Dielendi at 12. We've picked him at 15. We can't pick him at 12 now. So we have to consider who's going to potentially be starting at 10 when we pick our 12. And if Cornell's not the most physical 12, and we're looking at potentially a Mornay Steyn at 10, we could be quite vulnerable there defensively.
Well, if they're playing Farrell at 12 and Sexton at 10,
We just make sure Cornell's wearing a helmet.
we just make sure Ever's coming in there knows that it's kind of... And I would counter that thing of Cornell's physicality in that he's the one South African 12 that I've seen that gets over that gain line and gets that offload going.
Yeah, sure. That's a good point.
You know, some would say a poor man's Sonny Bill. Everyone's a poor man's Sonny Bill when it comes to the offload in the tackle. But I've liked the way he's managed to kind of continue that continuity without going to ground.
Right.
And it's just that extra second that he gets that release and that recycle. So
You want Cornell at 12?
well, he may not even make it at 12, but I'm thinking more Sergio Peterson.
Yeah.
So for purposes of our selection,
Serge,
we're going to go with Serge. We're going to bring back the kid,
the old young man.
the old young man who made his debut, scored the first ever
What
try
I'm talking about.
for the Kings in Super Rugby in front of 31,000 people.
Correct.
When they had something so golden going in those first 2 years under Alan Solomons. Never looked out of place. Came down to Cape Town. And again, should he have left the little city for the big city?
Right.
I don't think so. But also suffered with injury and that. I thought he was a hell of a lot older. You reminded me that he's only 26 now.
That's crazy.
Some guys are only starting to make their debuts at 26.
Well,
so,
I mean, take Kurtley Arendse. He's 24 years old. People are talking about him like, you know, he's the new thing on the scene. He's 2 years younger than Sergio. Look at all the stuff that Sergio's gone through in his career.
all right, I'm picking Sergio. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with him being there and playing off France Stain. Are you comfortable with Sergio?
I will take Sergio. Just consider that we have left out Siabelo Sonatla, pure speed, pure and utter pace. So we've got Sabu and Sergio.
So again, I kind of think of a Sonatla and I think of a Speckman more in that Colby mold. But I think when it comes to the experience, Sergio's been in the box setup before. He's played. He's been through a hell of a lot. And any kid who pitches up in Super Rugby at 18 and handles himself
Spot on.
against the physicality of those New Zealand sides, and he's got gas, so I really dig Sinatla as a player.
Yeah.
I mean, a sensation at sevens, and in the right team, I think could be electric as a winner.
Yeah.
I would tell him, go to France, make tons of money.
Correct.
And I don't quite know, given the current crop of wins, if he's ever going to play for the Springboks and be a regular, but he could be sensational in Europe. We've seen how Raymond Rule's gone over there. He's reinvented himself, playing outside centre and win. He's one of the 15 players of the year in Europe. I wouldn't pick him, not for the Springboks. I think he would see all those defensive frailties and flaws come out.
Spot on.
Especially for this third test. But I'm happy to go with the two winners in Kosi and Sergio Peterson, if you're happy.
Yeah, I'm in. Sabu and Sergio, let's do it.
All right. So we've got Frans Steyn at fullback. We've got Sergio on the right wing. Sabu and Kosi on the left wing. We will be putting the poll down. Zels, you want to chat about the poll and how it's going to work?
Yeah, basically we'll just list all the players that we've mentioned and give you the opportunity to decide on the left wing and on the right wing which player you'll pick, and then you'll get a gap to make the same choices at centre. So have a good listen, apply your mind to it, and make your picks.
Yeah, and we had 5,200 votes last week for the fullback position. There's an added bonus as well. You vote, you have the option to sign up, and you could win a signed Springbok jersey as well. And but when we looked at, we had a good few entries for the Bok jersey, I think 600 or 700. But mainly, people were in there voting. They got very passionate, as we always do about Springbok Rugby. And we play selectors, and especially we have our own war room. Everyone's got their war room. So we're going with that. The fun part now, midfielders.
Gee.
Sure, we could speak about that forever, the midfield, because I read a comment the other day from one of our colleagues who said, Andre Esterhazy at 12. I'd love to see him there. How do you leave him out? My response was easy. Damien Dialandi. And then 2 weeks later, Damien Dialandi, the star for Munster in that semi-final defeat, quarter-final defeat against Toulouse, just looked outstanding. And Damien Dialandi, without a doubt, my first choice, number 12. And the 13 that goes with him, our first choice, number 3, Lukhanyo Am.
Fantastic player.
Fantastic player. Has been very good for the Sharks. They are not available. Okay, let's stress that again.
They've put in for leave.
Purposes of our War Room show, playing selectors, they can't be there. So we would have chosen Willie Leroux. We would have chosen Cheslin Colby and Pimpy. We would have chosen Lukhanyo Am and Damien Dialandi. If that's sounding familiar, it's because it is. They won us the World Cup. The last time they played, they destroyed England. So they are not available. Now we go to centres. Hold up that big list of names that you showed me.
Are we starting at 12?
Let's start at 12.
Because you've already teed up Cornell as the guy who might have to come in there. And I just want to mention there's a kid who's got 35 test caps playing in France by the name of Jan Safontaine, who has never let anybody down. Experienced player, big body, has been in World Cups. Probably a guy worth considering.
Another Sergio Peterson. Newlands, several years ago, baby box, beat New Zealand. That final is remembered for Andre Pollard being in Paul Gym, a matric pupil. Only time a schoolboy's ever played for the baby box. He kicked a couple of penalties, a drop goal, was a star, but the star of the tournament was another youngster with the Dani Gerber hairstyle, Jan Surfentine.
There you go.
So everyone thinks he's about 30, but he's also...
I think he's in his late 20s now, 27.
Yeah, young kid.
Yeah.
How well has he been playing at Montpellier? He's been playing 12 and he's been playing 13.
Yeah, he's had to overcome that injury. He had a bit of a hip issue, but he's back on the field and playing well. Yeah.
Where do you rate him, 12 or 13? What do you think his best position is?
I think Jan is better at 12. I'm not sure he's got the speed for 13, but I mean, again, the defense has changed, so maybe he fits into what Jacques wants to do there. I like him at 12. He's a slightly different player to Damien Dialandi, but also powerful, thinker, and again, experience.
All right, who else have we got?
At 12, you're looking at Cornell Hendricks. There's a kid who I think is very underrated in South Africa and probably shouldn't be in this conversation right now, but Marius Lowe, the converted flanker who's playing 12 for the Sharks. He is an absolute breakdown terrorist. I think he's a really good player. You've got Clinton Swart, who was a prodigy from the Cheetahs, ended up in Japan for a little bit, is back at the Bulls now, very much in the frame of a Frans Steyn, 110, 115 kilogram inside centre, hasn't played enough to really be considered. And then there's Ron Janssen van Rensburg, the old Lions thumper, who went over to Sale, and he's been playing good rugby over there. Also another big body at 12 to consider. I think that's pretty much...
Look, Him, I don't consider in the sense that I fought a big battle for him about 3-4 years ago in the media, and then kind of sat down with coaches, and then they said to me,
Doesn't tackle
and has no work rate. Makes a wonderful impact, breaks the line. If his team's got momentum, and he was playing in a very good Lions side, looked the part, would be a good Super Rugby player, would play well in club rugby. We're talking the elite now. This is the big one, the third test. This is the All Blacks in a World Cup final kind of thing. Would I play him there? No. I don't think he would give you that 80 minutes that you need. So I kind of discard him. I've always been a fan of Jan Serfontein. He has subtlety to his game, which is not kind of something that you would associate with South African
at 12.
Yeah, with South African rugby at 12.
But having said that, Jean de Villiers, fantastically skillful player. He ended up with 12. You know, those sort of subtleties and that finesse you're talking about may not have been on display every time he touched the ball, but it was an option. You know, he gave you that. He was a threat.
Yeah. And we also we played to our strengths as a nation. Spot and Warren Gatlin said it a couple of days ago. This Springbok side have gone back, and Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber have gone back to one basic in their DNA. It's called physicality. And that's what's always made them one of the harder teams to beat in world rugby. It's why we've always, whether we've lost on so many occasions to the All Blacks, but outside of those 250-point blowouts, there's always been 7 to 10 points in it. Yep. We're the one team that can physically upset the All Blacks and kind of destroy that rhythm that they need when they play so wonderfully.
Yep.
And we're the only team in world rugby that makes England's pack look a little bit fragile and a little bit powder puff and half mortal, as we saw in that World Cup, in the 2019 World Cup final. So I know we'll be picking a big pack. Yeah, we're going to keep that DNA. We've gone with some big players, and why the hell not? We're not Australia.
Let's be us.
Let's be South Africans.
Yeah.
Let's be us.
Yeah.
So I like Jan Serfontein at 12. I certainly like Cornell Hendricks at 12. Frans Steyn, not an option. We haven't spoken too much about someone that everyone seems to love. If I look at the comments, he's playing out of Harlequins, Andre Esterhuizen. I think he's just a big one-dimensional bruiser who played for the Sharks and has gone to Harlequins. But a lot of people think otherwise, and so do Jacques and Rassie Erasmus, because he's been in the mix all along. Do you play him against the Lions at 12?
I think Andre Esterhuizen is the kind of guy you stand next to him and you're like, this guy has to be a phenomenal rugby player. He's 100 meters tall and 100 meters wide. He's ginormous. And he runs big, you know. You see his size sort of on the field, but it just doesn't seem to translate. It almost looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane sometimes. So I don't think so. I don't think he's a guy you can seriously consider. I think we need continuity there. Another guy we didn't talk about was Kobus van Wyk as a wing option. A fantastic player, another big body athlete, but also just can't seem to string consistent performances together. I think Andre and Kobus sort of fit into that mold where you think this guy's ceiling is very high, but you're just not getting that consistency.
We never threw him in the mix. Wes Goosen.
Where's he?
He's born in East London, left when he was 4 years old.
We can't backtrack now, mate.
No, but it's as an option in the midfield as well.
Oh,
if he was that good and options were limited in New Zealand because of the quality of their back players.
Right, they've got too many.
Would you see a guy like Rassie being that strategic and like saying to him, hey, but have you ever thought about playing for South Africa where you were born? I know you still love your Bolton. Is he? But the thing, why I put his name in the mix, he's done very well in the last 3 years for the Hurricanes.
Yep.
He's kept the likes of Sevilla out the side. They've toyed around with him right wing, left wing. He's played a couple of games in the midfield. Is it that we've just got better players at the moment in this country? And if he was playing here, would he be in the mix?
Oh, I don't think he would have been on the wing. I think he'd have been stuck closer. Probably ended up playing at 9 or something crazy. He reminds me of Frankie Hurkart. You know, very dynamic, explosive player, physical, plays above his weight, and has a finishing instinct. And I don't think if he'd stayed here, he would have got too much game time playing on the wing. So you probably wouldn't even know about him.
We are going to stick him in the mix as an option, though.
You know who he reminds me of? Is Tyron Green. Same player, isn't it? Very physical runner. You know?
Yeah, and done well for Harlequins, but to me, he's still too raw at the moment. You know, I'd
Agreed.
like to see him second season syndrome over there when they actually don't, where they now know who he is.
Right.
And they're shutting down great pace as well. So we do have good depth. We have
tons of options.
And options. It's do we have those individuals who would be capable of stepping in at the last minute and securing us this nail biter of a win?
Yeah.
If we look at those those 12 options. And a lot will be dependent when we pick the halfbacks in our next show. And again, for those who may have missed the first episode, experience is what we've decided as a selection panel, the two of us, what we're going to go for.
It's a crunch game.
Crunch game. So I would say it's an Esterhuizen, a Serfontein, or a Cornell Hendricks, if we're thinking conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
We love Damian Willems's name in it. 15-10.
Mate.
And a lot of people, and I'm one of them, says, could this kid's future finally be at 12?
Mm-hmm.
Where he doesn't have the pressure of playing at 10, of controlling a game. I think he's lost at 15.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's a big boy. He's over, I think he's 6 footer.
Yeah, he's 90 kgs.
And just has that wonderful step. To have that size and also have a step at 12, it may be too soon for him in this kind of context of a test match. But I would love to see his talent developed.
Absolutely.
At 12, where there's a lot less pressure on him to actually control, own, manage, and be the general, because that's where he has fallen down in the last 2 years.
And in that regard, I mean, obviously not talking about it for this frame, but in that regard, maybe Damien is a guy you need to bleed in on the wing and slowly work him towards the ball, like Van der Kreef, like Jean de Villiers, guys that came in having played a lot of centre as youngsters and then sort of worked their way in from the edge. So the other thing about Damien is that, maybe he's almost too physical at fly half. Maybe he throws his shoulders into too many tackles. So you won't have a problem with him at 12 dropping ball carriers, because he puts his body on the line big time.
Okay, so let's bring it down to those final three. And our choices is going to be Serfontein, Montpellier, Esterhuizen and Harlequins. And the boy from the Western Cape who's playing for the Bulls, Cornell Hendricks. And I want to make a case for Cornell Hendricks.
How did we get you?
I don't know, but I'm not going to use that thing. He's been loyal to South Africa because he tried to get a contract everywhere. He went everywhere and he failed all those medical tests. Esterhuizen is not my favorite player in terms of, I can see why people, like you said, rate him. My only doubt is I haven't seen enough of Jan Serfontein over the last 2 years.
Sure.
I would be picking him on a reputational pick and the experience that he's had. But I don't think Cornell Hendricks' experience is any less. And the fight, they both went through big different types of injury setbacks. And I just like what I saw from Cornell, which is very different to the traditional South African centre. And remember also, I'm also thinking that if someone goes down, I've got him on the field, he can shift out to the wing as well. So,
Before you make a pick, let me ask you this. Would you rather start Jan Serfontein at 12 with Cornell potentially at 13, or Cornell at 12 with Jan or Creel at 13?
Yeah, I would have Cornell.
I've got him stumped!
You have got me stumped. I'm trying to think, how do I get Jesse Creel into this team? His explosiveness. I would go with Cornell at 12. Jan Serfontein and Cornell Hendricks, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable with Jan Serfontein. Yep. But I'm going to push for Cornell Hendricks.
I'm with you. That's
and
fine.
It may be a trade at the
I'm with you.
Under the table.
Horse trading.
Yeah, I give you him, you give him. So you comfortable to go with Cornell?
Yeah, I'll go with Cornell. He's in form, he's experienced, he plays with his heart on his sleeve.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
So what do we got? 15 confirmed.
Frankie Steyn.
From us and you, as the viewer and the listener and the reader, our two win choices.
Sergil and Sabu. I don't know if the readers are going to go with us on Sergil. I'm quite keen to see what happens there.
I like him more and more. That Sergil selection.
Yeah.
And then our midfield, we'll go 12.
We're talking about Cornell Hendricks at 12. And in 13, we've got to make a choice. And I think the front runners there are Jesse Creel, Jan Serfontein potentially, Wandisile Similani. If Stedman Khans was healthy, he'd be a guy to really consider. He was in great form during the Currie Cup. And I think those are your leading options there.
Okay, and interchangeable. A lot of them could play 12 and could play 13. A bit like our winners.
Maybe we just go back to the days of left and right centre.
Exactly, And let's not get started on left and right flank as an open blindside. They'll confuse everyone. First 5 and second 5. So, 13. All right. So when I thought interchangeable is because when you said to me, would you go Cornell Hendricks 13 or would you go 12? I'm like, Is that from the first scrum or the first lineup? From broken play. It's... which again then made me think, initially I had Jesse Creel there because of his pace. But I quite like the Safontaine,
Could totally do that.
Hendricks.
Yeah.
And I actually quite like, the more and more you think about it, I quite like the Hendricks at 13 and Safontaine at 12.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what happens in the war room. You come in with an idea.
Throw it out the window.
Someone just plants a little seed, and in the end, you're phoning Craven to see what would we do now. From beyond the grave, Donnie Craven.
Correct.
So, Conversations with. Another series we may be introducing, having some conversations with the late and the great Dr. Donnie Craven. See what he would think of things.
Oh.
But for now, Safontaine or Kriel for the other midfield position. So we confirmed Hendricks is in.
I can see you thinking as you talk.
Make your case.
So I'm going to say this. Sabu is not the most experienced test campaigner. Sergio, he's starting from scratch. Cornell, something new at 12 at the test scene. I'm going to go for the most experienced available option now to help us. I'm going to say Jesse Kriel, 46 test caps at 13.
Well, the way you put it like that, I can't argue. I'm sorry, Jan, you were close. You were there. You've got to come home and come play for the Bulls, and then you can make it back.
Can't we chuck him on the bench? I mean, if Cornell can cover wing, couldn't we have...
I got a few bolters on the bench, mate.
Okay.
A few kids the Lions have never even heard of. Okay, so I'm happy to go Jesse Kriel. I mean, he's one of those players that every time he played, I just wanted him to do so well. And then he'd do okay, and then he would just not quite get there. And he does give you that pace, though. And so if you've got a Sergio on his outside and you got him there, all of a sudden, Francis Stein's perceived lack of pace becomes fairly irrelevant.
Yeah.
And you've got a Cornell on his inside, who's not a slouch when it comes to pace.
Absolutely.
But can put him through.
Yep.
Can put him through that gap, but also give him that space to run one-on-one at a 13, which really happens in Test rugby.
And Jesse Kriel's a guy who started out as a fullback or played some time at fullback, has played on the wing, can kick the ball. So in terms of replicating what Lukhanyo does with some of those attacking kicks, Jesse Kriel is a guy we could look to do that.
All right, so we've picked 5 of our
options.
Second tier options. We have to start that third and final test against the Lions in front of 90,000, the FNB Stadium.
I think it's Safontaine on the phone. He wants to know why we haven't picked him. I'm not going to answer.
Well, it's Safontaine. You want to know what Jake's number is. When does he come back to the Bulls from Montpellier? So, so we've got Franz Steyn is a given. He's playing. We thought so. So did you. Work us through the rest.
Okay, we've got Francis Steyn at fullback. We've got Sabu and Corsi on the one wing. We've got Sergio Peterson on the right wing. Our centres are Cornell Hendricks at 12 and Jesse Kriel at outside centre.
All right. How does it work for the viewer, the reader, the listener?
Okay, so below this post there'll be a poll where you can basically pick from a selection of 5 options your left and right wing and then your inside and outside centre. Let us know who you would like to see in that hypothetical Bok team if there was a mass crisis for players.
And you go to SARugbymag.co.za, you'll get it there. And the additional bonus, a signed Springbok jersey if you go into the voting poll. And if you voted for fullback, you're going to go vote right down to loose head prop. We'll accumulate all the votes, so you can vote more than once, but only once will your name go in per position into the draw. So you can get 15 cracks at that Bok jersey if you sending us your mail and you are voting. So it was great response to the fullback position. Zels, it's always great chatting war room.
Great
it's not really. A few guys came here that I certainly wasn't going to pick. I have now picked them. And some that I was going to pick, I haven't picked. I'm sorry, Jan. It's not personal. But I'm pleased we could get Jesse in.
Great job. Nice one.
Thanks, sir.